Okay, this video is going to be about how to get the trucks ready for the car if you're making an operating car. If you're not making an operating car, you can skip this. But if you're making an operating car, we're going to have to put some contacts on the bottom of the truck. And we'll put one contact per truck, and they will sit on the inboard wheels so that they won't be seen on the ends of the car. So this contact will be on this side, this contact will be on this side. Some of my earlier cars I actually used a Digitrax decoder in the car. And on the Digitrax cars, what I had was I had electrical contacts that touched each wheel, and then the decoder was programmed to an address, and I just used the forward and backward commands to get the doors to open. And it worked out really well because the unloading didn't have to be so precise, and I didn't have to worry about making contact with this plate. But I found that there was a lot of drag on the wheels, and once I got a loaded string of these cars together, even 5 cars with all the contacts making friction on the wheels, it was too much for the locomotives to pull. And so to get the cars free rolling again, I went to this system of a contact here, and then I just have a push button when the car makes contact with some wire wipers under the track. You push a button, and then the car will doors will open, and then there's another button to close the cars. It just reverses the polarity basically. The way these contacts are set up is they are just slightly above the rail height, so that the contacts don't hit switch frogs and different things, but they are low enough that the wipers underneath or between the rails don't interfere with the KD, the trip pin that goes underneath the KD coupler. These will just go right over the top, and and the wipers don't hit the bottom of the pilots of locomotives. So to do this, we're going to need to get our phosphor bronze sheet out. We're going to need the Soundtrax micro connectors. We're going to need about a 1.5-inch piece of small flexible wire. This is actually cut off from a decoder, but any kind of small flexible wire. I picked black because it doesn't show up as well. You can take a Sharpie marker and color black any color wire. And then we're going to need some of the 30 thousandths brass wire. This happens to be K&S excuse me, 32 thousandths brass wire, but it doesn't matter just as long as it's 32 thousandths. So the way I do this is the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to cut a 2-inch piece of the brass wire. Doesn't have to be exact, just snip off a piece of 2-inch wire. And then I got this flat jaw pliers, and I just grab it roughly in the middle. You can use these grids on a cutting mat. Just go ahead and grab it so you're right in the middle, and then I just bend down on the sides so you've got something that looks like that. And then now I've got this little jig that I made that I actually slip this over the top, and I just bend this around so I can make a lot of consistent parts. But the height of that bend is, I'll measure it here real quick. Let's see. About a 1/4 inch. So you can make a 1/4 inch bend, and then I'll just square mine up here. So what we're looking for is something that looks like that. Okay, now we're going to cut a strip of the phosphor bronze just off the end. This doesn't have to be perfectly done. And for the ON3 cars, I'm making my strip 0.6 of an inch. Obviously for an ON30 car, you'd have to make it narrower. That's close enough. So I'm just running a light line on here just so I can see where it is. I know it's hard for you to see. And then I just cut this phosphor bronze. I have this old, just an old crappy scissors. Works well. What I like to do with this is I like to take something like that's round, small. What I do is I just hold it against the sheet and I push on the back side of this a little bit and I just draw it across here. Of course, make sure you don't have any sharp burrs on here. And then just like this, kind of bend it around and then just draw the sheet through it until you get something like that. The reason why I do that is when we cut little pieces off here, they'll all have a small curve to them. So we'll cut, one sheet is pretty much a lifetime supply of these contacts, so I'm not worrying too much about wasting the little end piece I just cut off. That was kind of straight. I just want to get back in here where there's some nice curve. And I'm just going to cut a little strip. Square it up a bit here. Something that looks like that. It's got a little bit of a curve to it. And then we're going to solder this piece we just made on the back so that the curve is on the bottom here like this. And I've got a little micro mark board here I bought. It's a soldering board. I do a lot of soldering, and I've just put a couple pieces of balsa wood on here and this piece of brass to kind of spring this down. And I just use that as a clamp to hold this. Just add a little piece of solder to that. So that's just a little piece of rosin core solder. And then just go ahead and hit that with the soldering real quick. Just takes a second. There's our contact shoe. And then I'm going to take this little piece of wire here and I'm going to strip off the ends. One's a little bit, I stripped a little bit more off this and barely any off the other end. And I'm just going to solder that to the right side post here. It's kind of awkward to do this camera here. Stick it back in that clamp here. Okay, I'm going to take out one of the male connectors out of here. I'm actually just going to stick the pin down right into this soldering board, like so. Then I'm going to take this short end of this wire. I'm going to dip a little rosin on the end of that. Okay, so we're just going to stick the end of that wire inside the clip. It's got a little rosin on there, so we'll just stick it in there. Or inside the pin, I'm sorry, on the connector. And then I'm just going to go ahead and hit it with the soldering iron. The inside should just fill right up with solder. It takes a touch. Let it dry for a second. And there we have the contacts for the truck.